Next, we come to modulus inequality. Now, you learn in secondary 4 or sec 3, mod of x is equal to x when x is greater than 0 and minus x if x is less than 0. Now, in the same way, what do you mean by this inequality? Mod of f of x is smaller than a. Now, modulus means when the value is positive, or it will take on that value itself. However, when it is negative, you take the positive value of it. That means, let's say when x is 2, mod of 2 is 2. When x is minus 2, alright, the value of mod x is still 2, because minus 2, it becomes 2. Now, what does this mean? Now, if you look at a graph, this is the graph of f of x. Now, let's sketch the graph of mod f of x. So, you learn in sec 4, when this is the negative value of f of x, you reflect it about its x-axis. So, your graph will look something like this. I draw it in dotted. Alright, so this whole graph here, this part, alright, is mod f of x. Alright, this thing is mod f of x. Mod f of x. So it's the one, the blue dotted one, as well as this, the one above the x-axis, the green one that is above the x-axis. Now, you want this mod f of x to be less than a. Now, let's say this is a, alright. You want the mod f of x, alright, this graph, to be less than a, alright. So, less than a, you want it to be less than this value. So, it is these values of x that you take, alright. Now, but if you consider f of x instead of this graph, alright, then let me draw the line y equals to minus a first. Alright. Now you want this portion of the graph, alright, mod f of x to be smaller than a. So you want this portion of the graph, okay? This portion here. Okay? Now, that means this is for the graph mod f of x. But if you unmod it, alright, so f of x, it is this part of the graph that you want for f of x. This one in red. Alright? Correct? So that when you reflect it, alright, it becomes this part. So this inequalities means f of x is between a and minus a. Okay? This is something very important, alright, but you will be using a lot of it. Now, what is mod f of x is greater than a? What does it mean? Now, this one means f of x is greater than a, or f of x is smaller than minus a. Now, you look at it, okay? Now you want f of x to be greater than a. So it is this part of the graph that you want. Okay, maybe I draw it this one in red. It is this part that you want. And this part. In terms of mod f of x. Now, if you unmod it, alright, you look at this graph now. Which part of the graph that you want? It is the one that is in blue. Okay, it is now this part of the graph that you want. If you consider f of x. Okay, so that's why your inequalities is like that. Okay, understand? So this part is f of x is smaller than minus a. This part, f of x is greater than a. That's why you got this inequality. Now let's do an example. Now, by sketching appropriate graph, alright, by sketching. So it should be sketching appropriate graphs, solve this. Now, if you just blindly do this sum by this way, x minus 2 is greater than plus minus 2x minus 2. You may not get the answer, alright? I'm not too sure about this because if you do it this way, sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you do not get the answer. Why? Because when you do this, you are not sure whether 2x minus 2 is positive or negative, okay? Because if it's negative, you must flip the sign, okay? So you are not sure because it's a modulus, okay? It's a modulus. Now I will not go into detail. You can try on your own, okay? So some of you might, in Sec 4 might just do it blindly, all right? I always tell my students, no, you try to do it with the help of a graph, all right? You can also do it algebraically, but sometimes it's quite hard for you all to visualize. So I rather you all do it by the help of sketching a graph. All right, let's sketch this graph x minus 2 first. So it cuts the x-axis at minus 2, our y-axis at minus 2, the y-intercept is minus 2, and it has a gradient of 1. So this part must be 2. So this is your graph, okay? Now you mod it, so you actually reflect it about the x-axis for those parts that are below the x-axis. Okay, so let's say this is 2. So you reflect, your graph will look something like this. Okay, so this is y is equals to x minus 2. This part is y is equals to minus x plus 2. Alright, now you draw this graph. This graph also has a y-intercept of minus 2, but now the gradient here is steeper. Alright, so this part is, this gradient is 2, so this it should cut at 1. So maybe I use blue or I use green. So this is your graph. Okay, so this graph is y is equals to 2x minus 2. Okay. Now if you look at it, you want this modulus graph to be greater than this graph. Alright. So this is the part that you want because this part of the pink graph is higher than, is above this part of the green graph. Alright, because you want this part to be greater than this. Okay, so what are the values of x that you want? So your values of x, it will be, you will take this value, okay, until the point of intersect the x value of the point of intersection. Okay, so what we can do is we can find the x value of this intersection point. How to find the x value of this intersection point? You simply equate this graph to this graph, alright, because this is the intersection of the point. So you have minus x plus 2 is equals to 2x minus 2. And then you bring your x over, you have 3x is equals to 4. And x is equals to 4 over 3. Now you want the value of x to be less than 4 over 3. Alright, so you have an equal sign here as well. So x will be less than or equals to 4 over 3. So this is your answer to this inequality.